Right. Looks like we're at the top of the hour, so why don't we go ahead and get started. Greetings, everyone. My name is Pannu. I'm the operations lead for the IlliniCloud, and I'd like to personally welcome you and thank you for attending our webinar today on security and the K-12 landscape. This webinar is meant to be an interactive session, so if you have any questions, please go ahead and feel free to type them in the chat window, and we'll either answer them in stride or maybe save some of them for the end, but we'll definitely get to any questions that get typed into the chat window. Presenting today is Chris Squatritto. He's Special Consultant, Technology and Security for Clark County School District. And with that, Chris, I'll turn off screen sharing and turn it over to you so you can take us forward from here.
All right. Hi, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Or at least, can you hear me, Jat?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, good. So that means everybody should be able to. Good morning from Las Vegas. It's probably afternoon where most of you all are sitting. I'm Chris Squatritto. As Jat said, I'm currently the special consultant for security, technology, and just about whatever else the CTO wants me to help out with these days at the Clark County School District. So let me go ahead and get my share going here. And then I'm going to probably end up pacing around and and boom. Okay.
Yep, we can see it.
All right, cool. So anyway, spent my first 20 years as a working human at the Clark County School District. Still trying to figure out exactly when that picture was taken. I'm pretty sure it was somewhere between 1996 and 1998, which puts me right at either a senior in high school or a freshman in college. Yes, I did do a 2-year freshman stint, and it wasn't because of football. So spent most of my career, actually all of my career, Clark County School District, doing technology, innovation, special projects. We were kind of a skunkworks group. We're the people who were the crazy folks who brought the internet into the Clark County School District. We built the first wide area network with ISDN lines and switch 56 lines and all that boring technical stuff. And so the genesis of our department was always forward thinking, being thought leaders, doing things that most K-12s weren't interested in the mid to late 90s, building an email platform that wasn't in the mainframe, things like that. So that's kind of my background, and I guess why I'm here gives you a little bit of understanding where I come from. Over the past couple of years, I've transitioned away from the school district. After 20 years, I decided I need a little bit of a break. And my passion is cybersecurity, more specifically cybersecurity as it affects K-12 and public higher ed. So the community college system, kind of, where we're the farm team for the college systems in our area. Those folks need just as much help, and at least here in Clark County, our community college system is pretty intertwined with the school district. We have kids who get dual credit for college and high school on multiple community college campuses here. So we do a lot of collaborative work with them, and they need just as much help because they're kind of on the same funding model as the school district. So here's kind of an overview. If any of you were at Tech Feast a couple years ago, I presented a much longer and much more windy version of this slide deck. I promise it will not be as long. So the discussion is going to really kind of start out as, what is this thing we're talking about? How does it affect K-12s? And what can you do to help make yourself secure and ensure that your students have the resources they need when they need them, and that you're not down because of attack or because of a vulnerability or because of some sort of malware. So this is a basic run through of how the evolution of cybersecurity starts out with just normal Windows updates, goes through good design of your network. In the center is just having a firewall. Whatever it is, you've got one. At least you know that you shouldn't just let everybody in and out without some sort of crossing guard, I guess. Next gen firewall is where you can start to actually look at what traffic's going through. You can determine the difference between port 80 going to a website and port 80 that's a BitTorrent client that's tunneling. And then on the far right, it's kind of where everybody's headed. And I'll talk a little more about it later, which is full security operations. You've got folks on the ground that know what's going on, or monitoring your systems, or making sure that things that are coming in and things that are going out are correct. They can start to look at interesting traffic patterns and start to model data analysis around normals in your district. So they understand that, let's say for instance, over the summer at Clark County School District, seeing 8 gigabit of internet bandwidth would not be normal for a late July, early August. That should be much more around 2. And figuring out what's happening. Is it that a bunch of PCs are turning on to do system updates? That's cool. We are okay with that. Or is it that these 2 machines have started firing off some sort of malware and they're beaconing home with, command and control software? So it's that sort of fundamental understanding of what your current state is, what your known network and infrastructure looks like, to detect patterns. So what are we talking about? We're talking about a public partnership with a private entity, and this has come up a couple of times as to how the structure is set up. We as K-12 don't ever want to be in the responsibility list for cybersecurity. There are a lot of issues involved with being the person that's on the hook for cybersecurity, with notification, with legal, with financial repercussions. If there's a breach, there's a number per person that you need to notify. You need to worry about setting aside funds. In fact, we had an incident here in the Southwest in Arizona, Maricopa County Community College District. They probably couldn't add any more letters to that, was breached last year, and their data was exfiltrated. So all their student data, all their staff data was pulled out. Now, you assume not a big deal. It's just students at a community college. They were notified about 2.5 years ago that they had some old software that was not protected correctly, and that if they took some steps to either put a firewall around it or do some updates and push it into a newer database, that they would be, safe. They didn't take those advisements, and what it turned into is a $25 million bill for not only notification, but for lawsuits and for privacy issues. And so, you see that cybersecurity is becoming more and more of not only important just to keep your lights on, but important because you don't want to get sued. And I don't think any district has deep enough pockets to keep the lights on and to pay for a lot of lawsuits and things like that. So I bring that up, and we'll talk a little more on that in a little bit. But the partnership is between folks who get education, so people like the IlliniCloud, CCSD, WISCNet up in Wisconsin, folks in the state of Arizona that are doing K-12, K-16 education, are all collaborating together, part of a federation called the K-12 Federation, and a company that was awarded the RFP and contract from the Clark County School District to do cybersecurity services. So this has already gone out to bid, an RFP, and it's public, and you can download whatever documents to prove that. And it's a partnership, again, because we want a private company who's got insurance and know how to manage things, and we get K-12. And so we're going to secure K-12 or K-16 entities, just depends on the case for your area. So cybersecurity, you've been hacked. If I'm the first person to tell you that, I'm sorry. I hate to break that news to you. You are compromised. There is at least one thing on your network that is beaconing out, that is reporting out. There's a virus somewhere, there's malware somewhere that's leaking data. Now, this could be data from a PC that nobody uses and nobody cares about, or it could be something on your LMS or your ERP system, depending on how large you are, or your finance person's QuickBooks install. Who knows? So this was a notification, 2012, it's a little old, from the director of the FBI. And I think this was a kind of weakened a bit, because if he had said you've been hacked like I did, it's very abrasive, and I don't think that most people would have appreciated that. So he's sort of giving you a warning: you've either been hacked or you're going to be. But so right here you see what's going on out in the wild, and this is a list from about a year ago. I think I've updated the slides just a bit, but this is what's going on in the wild. So you see all these malware variants, all these things that are going on out in the wild that are causing Android devices. Again, big thing for bring your own device. Big concern there is around all these devices that are on our network, but we don't really have any way to protect them. You see all the different 326 million devices are having issues. You see that there's a lot of this going on out in the wild. And so what we need to do is start to look at protecting the infrastructure we've got from bring your own device, from wireless networks that are open by accident, ransomware. I don't know if any of your districts have been hit by ransomware. That's a huge thing. You've got all these CryptoLocker and things that are coming in, and you need to protect yourself. So here's what just came out. In fact, this was what Jat and I were speaking about kind of as some folks were hopping on the call. Gartner released this little note to all the CIOs that are in their list. And it's specifically the first discussion about intelligent people, not intelligent things, are actually less costly. So instead of buying the new whiz-bang, hotness, firewall or endpoint protection or this thing or that thing, smart humans are what is going to fix everything. And so what you're seeing there is the two big key points is that, yes, you've got security folks, maybe. But if they're underskilled, they're going to depend on a single vendor. So, you know, the old adage when I was coming up was you don't get fired if you buy IBM, and it sort of turned into nobody gets fired for buying Cisco or nobody gets fired for buying Microsoft. But in this day and age, you can't just depend on one thing. You can't just depend on a specific vendor or a specific solution to protect you. And so what you're seeing there is that it drives up non-labor costs. So it's driving up your hardware costs. And the second thing is underskilled staff can't do the things necessary to reduce the need for more staff. And we see this a lot in public entities is we hire people because the people we've got that are part of, at least here in Las Vegas, part of a union, aren't pulling their weight. But it's more important that it's underskilled. It's people who are trying, so they've learned something. Again, I'll go back to my days. I thought I knew a lot. I thought I put a lot of thought into security, and I feel like I only knew about 6% of what's going on out there. So not that I really love Gartner, not that I listen to them for any advice around technology, but I thought this was a very interesting kind of bulletin. And this is about as much as I can pull out of it. If you have a Gartner account, I implore you to grab that research note number and look at kind of the depth of what they talk about. It really is about smart people who can help drive your security infrastructure in a way that they will buy stuff. They're going to get endpoint protection. They're going to get firewall. They're going to look at cloud security. They're going to look at all these things, but maybe you don't need it. And instead of people just buying software because a vendor shows up at their door, you may have an increase in staff costs, but you'll probably end up decreasing your hardware costs. And so who's attacking? These are most of the groups that are doing the attacking for most companies. What I specifically see in K-12 is that it's more around individuals and just stuff floating out there from the other three groups. Drive-by attacks. It's not anybody specifically right now targeting K-12, other than the students that are in your schools. I used to say that I am less concerned about China than the 322,000 terrorists that walk in the front of our schools every day here in Clark County. And, I know it's kind of mean, but the point is that the kids that are on our networks have the most motivation to take us down. They want to see us down. They want to make sure that they don't have to take a test online on Friday. They want to watch the school panic because their Wi-Fi is down. They get a kick out of it. And most of them have plenty of time. They're there for 7 hours and 11 minutes here in Clark County every day. And they have nothing, for the most part, better to do than do mean things. And this is kind of the new spitball. And so the rest from the government's political entities and hacking groups, that's all drive-by malware. That's phishing attacks. That's stuff that comes in through email. It's stuff that people get the wrong website. They type eBay instead of eBay or whatever, and they end up at some third-party site that's only built to drop malware. So that's kind of the set of folks that are attacking. So what are they attacking? Well, as you see the stuff popping up, everything. And these are all things I've seen on school district networks. So Fitbits and iPhones and iPads and computers and watches and even those Nest thermostats. We've seen teachers put their own thermostats in their portables because they want to make sure that it's cool before they show up or warm before they show up. And they're tired of the little Honeywell cheapie. So we've actually seen some of those that are connected to the Wi-Fi infrastructure here. So it's all this stuff. And the Internet of Things is just getting bigger, and there's more stuff, and bring your own device, and all of these requirements. And now everybody's got to get a laptop to do testing. And there's a lot of things out there. There's a lot of endpoints. There's a lot of surface area. So government inaction, it's said that way correctly. I mean, it's funny, but so as I was talking to Jack also, it's a big enough and important enough thing that Congress is taking this up. So the House of Representatives is trying to push through the Cybersecurity Responsibility and Accountability Act. And so what they're proposing is that if there's a breach that occurs because someone failed to do their job after they were notified for whatever requirements, from NIST or from whatever their sector is, so the FBI, CIA, the Treasury, US Postal Service gets compromised, that the OMB can recommend their removal from their position. It also has a little bit of hooks as for payment and performance bonuses that federal employees can get, that for a 12-month period following the resolution of the issue, not the discovery, an employee can be refused any sort of pay increases, merit increases, and they face demotion. So it's getting pretty big. And so what it tasks is NIST, which is the Institute for Standards and Technology, to identify what each agency, so Department of Education, Department of Homeland Security, Treasury, Postal Service, all those that I listed, will have special recommendations for their specific security needs. And then they're also tasked with sort of training. And I put this here because this is the precursor to what's going to happen in each one of our states, because we're all Me Too. And so someone in Nevada during the legislative cycle that starts in January here will bring this up. And I'm sure that we'll see something like this drafted within the next couple of years for everybody's state. And so this means that as people who are held responsible for the work, you may actually be held responsible for your job if you don't follow the guidelines. So it's no longer, oh, that's a great idea, I'd love to do it, but I can't. If a guideline comes down from the Department of Education and your state has a law like this, all of us tech directors end up kind of at risk of losing their jobs or getting demoted or not receiving performance pay or things like that. So it's becoming more and more critical that we pay attention to it. We can't just ignore it anymore. So as you see here in the pie chart, we are still the second largest industry that is compromised, not because we have anything that really can profit hackers, but just because we're kind of soft and gooey and we don't really have a lot of funding to pay for security. So we're sort of open. So a lot of people will play with education, will test on education, will try to compromise education entities because they know that there's not a lot of sophisticated security around it. And so they do a lot of training against us. You'll see a lot of pinpoint targeting, increased throughput on your bandwidth, computer CPU spiking, and a lot of times when you dig deep, you find that there's malware on your box, and they're actually testing a bot army or somebody paid for an attack. Big thing for here, Clark County, with 325,000 students, there's a lot of internet pipe. It's 40 gig right now, and that can be used against any number of entities. And with a limited or non-existent security team, you could take 40 gigs and 100 computers and cripple an eBay, or cripple part of Google, or you could take down a small vendor, or you could take down a country. You could take down a country like Syria, or you could take down a country like Cuba, or somebody small with a small internet pipe, because a lot of these countries don't have a lot of internet infrastructure. And so if you took a 40 gig cannon and saturated their 10 gig pipe, they've got no internet to the country. So, and then, the biggest thing is back to smart people. Data correlation is the most important thing to do in security. And so knowing the difference between an invalid correlation, spurious correlation, or real correlation is important. So as you see here, this is just a correlation between the 1,000 divorces in Maine and the US margarine consumption per capita. Yep, that correlates, but I would probably bet all of my money on those have nothing to do with each other. So it's understanding correlated data that is the kind of the hallmark of what a good security team does. So it's complex, always evolving. You need to know what's exposed on your network, what's out there, what's vulnerable, what's not updated, what's not taken care of. And you need thoughtful people, because a robot would see that correlation, and if that was a correlation on your firewall, would shut down traffic. And if anybody's installed an IPS, IDS on their network before and turned it on to actually block traffic, you've probably instantly seen some real traffic disabled. That just happens because robots still, no matter how good Tesla's driving car is, or how good my little Roomba on the ground that vacuums is, they're still not really good at making those human type decisions yet. So here's a quick example with karate belts of what security looks like. So the first couple are all about network operations. So you probably heard of network operation centers. You've probably seen a bunch of these on TV. Big screens, lots of TVs, lots of computers, a lot of people typing away. The whole point of this is making sure that the red lights turn green. Is the network up? Great. That's all they care about. They don't care about what's going across it. They just care that the network's up, or that the wireless access point's up, or that things are green. When you start to get towards the middle, you're starting to look at a little more of logging. What's going on? So the light's green, great. How much bandwidth's being used? How pegged is the CPU on the server? How much CPU is being used on the switch? Is that sort of normal, or is that weird? And so as you get towards brown and black, is where you sort of see, I guess, where we're all headed, kind of the North Star, which is you understand your network, you understand the peaks and the valleys, you understand what's starting, what's stopping, why the CPU's up on this box. It's because every Wednesday we run payroll, and that's why the CPU's at 99%. Don't worry about it. Or like I said, over the summer, there shouldn't be 8 gigs of bandwidth going to the internet. Why is that happening? So digging deep, understanding that, looking at the logs, knowing that it's coming from thousands of devices and they're all going to microsoftupdate.com. That makes sense. That's valid, because people had come back early and started to turn machines on, and the first thing they do is go radio back to Microsoft to ask what's changed since the last time it was on, and there's a big pile of updates. So we, unlike companies, have a different sort of operating structure. If we're down, we're not losing millions. What we're losing is education time, and it's valuable. Teachers have 54 or 55 minutes per period to educate a student. And if for 51 of them, the internet doesn't work, and that's part of the lesson plan today, they've lost instruction time. So we don't get a snow day. We have 181, 182, depending on where you're at, 185, X number of days to educate kids. And we don't get a do-over day because the internet didn't work or because the whole school's wireless was down. Those teachers in that school have to figure out what to do, and they're probably not prepared for it because, well, we're usually pretty dependable. The internet's usually up, the wireless usually works, the computers usually run. So the biggest problem is that we're seeing, like I said, the Internet of Things developing. So we're no longer still on the hook for test computers and networks and printers and internet infrastructure. We're responsible for the HVAC systems getting to where they need to. The security camera infrastructure may also be running across your network. So we've done all this work over the past decade and got all this funding to finally buy all these really cool firewalls to protect our edge, but we've done nothing to protect our creamy center. So all of our schools that connect back up into us centrally or however they connect back in, are you protecting yourself from them? Are you protecting them from each other? If a school goes down, can it take down another school? Is each school kind of dependent on the next school for running? Is it like a set of dominoes? If one goes down, do they all go down? Like, those are things that we have to really start to take a look at as the internet becomes more required of education, with Common Core, with SBAC or PARC testing, with whatever other tests you guys are running or other educational learning systems you're running. If you're running an LMS like Blackboard or Canvas, if you're running a student management system like Infinite Campus or PowerSchool, if teachers can't get in to report things for a while, it causes backup and it causes problems. So your internal users become your greatest weakness. So this is from a couple of years ago. We all know the story. People have been compromised, Sony, Microsoft. This was basically an advertisement for the Lizard Squad for pay-for attack. And this is, again, what I was going to earlier. A lot of the attacks we're seeing now in K-12 are pay attacks. Someone is actually given money in the form of Bitcoin or gift cards or whatever to an organization to actually take down their school district's network. We can tell because of the network ranges that the attacks come from. We can tell because of the sophistication of the attacks, the type of the attacks. It's very, very interesting to see that with very minimal money, you can see $130 for the month. You can take down a school for 9 hours a day. And that's not a lot of money for a lot of our students. And if that means that they don't have to take a test or they don't have to do some work and they get to have a movie day or a field day or whatever, they might do it. It's very interesting. So this happened in your neck of the woods up there. The big update was that he was eventually fired. Again, it's one of those things where the level of sophistication of these attacks is getting so great that it's hard for one person alone who's got 90 million other things to do to be up on everything, to know what's going on, to be able to protect everything. And so you're getting to a position where it's difficult for very smart people who care to protect their networks, and you sort of get to a point where you're in over your head before you have a chance to really respond. And so stuff like that happens. Whoops, go back. So most of our district networks are white belt, kind of middle of the road. We know students have already exploited districts, and identification, again, correlation, identification of stuff on your network, data points that are going on, is the only way to stop yourself from being attacked. Your firewall won't do it alone anymore, no matter what Palo Alto, Checkpoint, Fortinet, firewall you've got. It will not protect you alone. It will do a very good job of informing you of what's going on, but if no one's paying attention to the logs that are being generated, it's like a tree falling in the forest. It happened. Your firewall was telling you about it, but nobody was there to hear it because everybody's busy doing the other stuff to keep the district up, the printers, the networks, the wireless, the new laptops that came in, the imaging of this and the doing of that. So this is where this whole thing kind of culminates in the end. When I was at Clark County School District, I had a very good relationship with the board and the superintendent. This was 5 years ago. And basically proposed to them the creation of a cybersecurity department under technology, with funding for staff, with funding for stuff, and with funding for kind of future. And lucky enough, I got a big portion of what we needed to start that. And a lot of times in K-12, the first thing you're going to do is run and say, I want to do this. And the second thing that is out of anybody's mouth is, well, who else is doing it? What other district is doing it? Are these guys doing it? Or Bloomington doing it? In the big ranks of like Clark County School District, whenever I asked anything, it's sorry about that. Whenever I asked for money, well, is LA Unified doing it? Is Chicago Public Schools doing it? Is Broward County in Florida doing it? What's New York City doing? And if my answer was they're not doing it, it was very, very difficult to convince anybody that we should go first, because I'm sure you guys all have the same experience. The tallest blade of grass gets cut first, and that is very relevant for K-12. Everybody's looking for a person to go first, and no one wants to be first. So CCSD went first. Like I said, we did a year and a half worth of studying, getting the funding allocated out of the budget cycle, going to an RFP, vetting multiple companies. There were lots of large companies, there were lots of small companies, there were lots of medium companies that responded. And so we have a very big environment. So we were able to sort of beat people up on their pricing to get the right response, to get the right people involved. Because that's sort of a representation of us. We're 8,000 square miles. We're bigger than Rhode Island. We're bigger than New Jersey. Our county covers a big portion. It includes Las Vegas and Henderson and Laughlin all the way in the south, and Mesquite all the way in the east. So we're pretty big. The million endpoints is IP addressable, not necessarily laptops and things like that. And we have 368 schools, and we're moving up by another 10 over the next 2 years. So what is this thing? So we're talking about is a fully functional security operations center with logging from your security devices into a security and incident event manager, a SEM. I'm sure you've heard that before. 24/7 analysis, because even though you go home, your staff goes home, people are still banging away at your network. And if there's the janitor's device on at night and he's BitTorrenting something, or he hits a website that's bad, accidentally or intentionally, you need to be able to stop that from getting any farther. So threat detection, mitigation. Incident response team, most of it's located here in Las Vegas, but there are, Clark County School District, but there are folks in other locations that are doing the 24/7 watching. So we have 2 people that have been contracted to us as part of this engagement that sit on property at CCSD that do the work from 6 to 5, and then it spins out to remote onshore here in the United States monitoring. Then other things that can be involved and included is network management. If you don't want to run your firewall anymore, you don't have to. So you can offload the adds, moves, and changes of your firewall to this. You no longer have to worry about it. You would just ask for things to be added. And then if there was a security incident, policies would be updated and added automatically. Also devices, if some of you are thinking about getting a new firewall, you can look at this service to provide that. That's sort of a rented leased model. The nice part about that, and it's something we're going to start taking advantage of here, is that means that if the device, for some reason, and I won't name names, but we found a very large scale architectural hardware design flaw in a top firewall vendor's equipment. It is baked in, you can't software patch it, it's bad. And so what we've done is move to a different vendor because we are utilizing this. So we've got new firewalls in place now that do not have this vulnerability. And then endpoint protection, it's something we're looking at here. We're not talking about McAfee or can't think of the other guys with an S, Symantec or Sophos or Kaspersky. We're talking about actual endpoint malware detection, something that sits on your box that starts to look at what's going on in the box, what's normal, what's not. Should this process spawn after this process? Things like that. So you're getting to the next level of virus protection, where you can sort of detect the forensics on the box. It integrates into your logging, and it provides a complete view for the forensics team and to detect. So there's a couple of different ways that we've kind of carved this up, and we're still working on kind of pricing. The price range is going to be anywhere from $5 to $10 a student per year. Again, it's hard to really kind of generalize this amongst districts, because smaller districts have to absorb a little bit more of a startup cost, because there is sort of a fixed cost and then there's a scaled cost. And so we're trying to roll this out thoughtfully, and so we're still figuring out how this will work, and I'll centralize into what CCSD is doing and how we integrate it. But basically, there's two different ways to get it. One's silver. It includes a device, a firewall that has intrusion detection, threat analysis, and a SIPA compliant filter. So if you're looking for a new one of those, this provides it too. Or just something where you just want someone to look at your logs from your firewall and maybe manage your firewall or not. We're already working with the folks in Bloomington to do this security stuff, and they don't want us changing their firewall. So they handle it. If there's a problem, we notify them. So we can kind of scale that back if necessary. So that's basically the whole 9 yards. Look, I kept it almost at 30 minutes. So much better than the last one. So questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, I am available for anything. I don't have the chat window open, so let me.
Yeah, there's one question, Chris, so far. This is from Jim Flanagan. Can we get links to the information about the Arizona cases?
Sure. In fact, here's what I'll do. Give me 2 seconds, because I've got.
So while Chris is pulling that up, I'd like to give people this opportunity to go ahead and put your questions into the chat window, and we can address them as they come up.
Nope, that's the wrong one.
And for folks that are looking for more information or want to have some questions post this session, we can definitely provide that information for you. I will be putting my contact information into the chat. You have it as part of so you have it as part of the path forward.
Here we go. There's a lot of data on it. I'm just trying to find the most updated link with sort of the latest cost. So this should be okay. So let me find the chat window, which is here. So that is that was May 26th of 2014. There's been further, but that puts the breach cost to them at 19.7 million, and it climbed to 26. I'll try to find the most recent article. Basically 2.5 million student records were exfiltrated because of a data system that was improperly secured, and that they had been told was not properly secured. It's almost the exact same case as what happened to the Office of Records Management. Basically the people that for the federal government handle all the credentialing and security and all of the data for everyone that's a federal employee. Their data system was breached, and everybody who's ever had clearance, ever requested clearance, or ever worked for a federal entity, including the military, their data was all stolen. And it included, because I was part of this breach, fingerprints. So my fingerprints, my information, my social, everybody that was ever talked to in doing my background check, all my financials are all sitting in a data record. And I was notified by them that while they don't believe there is a use for my fingerprints, that they cannot confirm that there won't be a use for my fingerprints in the future. And short of them saying, go change your fingerprints, they pretty much told me I was SOL. And so these are the sort of breaches that are going on, and we had a, I walked away from my computer. Were there any questions? I don't want to.
Yes, there's another question from Bernie. What is the deployment strategy for end user devices? For example, agents installed. Does such create issues for other enterprise solutions?
So the out of the box regular thing that we're doing, kind of like what we're doing in Bloomington, Clark County, and moving around into like Chandler schools in Arizona, no, there's no agents. There's nothing installed on devices. It's just literally taking the logs that are generated from whatever firewall you have in place and shipping them to a centralized log management system, which is where all the CCSD logs and records go, so that they can be aggregated and reviewed in parallel with other districts. Now, if you do endpoint protection, yeah, there is going to be something installed on the device. And there's a couple good ones out there. I'm not in the market of recommending, but there are a couple good ones that install a very lightweight 12 meg agent application that sits on your computer. It's very lightweight. It does not intrude. There are some out there, and I won't name those vendors either, that install a very heavy agent that needs to have administrative access that is a service as opposed to a user agent. And so it is very heavy. It can stop processes from running. And they do not advise putting on things like Exchange servers and stuff like that. So we steer clear away from those. We stick with the ones that are lightweight, that are easy running, that run with everything, that run on Linux and Mac and Windows and iOS and Android, and those sorts of things. Because there's limited people. I mean, it's K-12. I get it. I remember I had 11 people, and that was it for all network, all internet, and security for 1 million devices, 1 million endpoints. So we don't need any other stuff getting in the way of our day.
All right, great. Other questions?
Plan strategy right there. And if you need me, I'll give you my email.
Yeah, that'd be great. Go ahead and put it in there. I wasn't sure which one you wanted to use.
You can use that one. You can do either one of these. We have we've got our own email server at CCSD, and we use a program called First Class for our email. And we're having a little bit of errors and issues with it. So that's why I give my Gmail out, because it gets right to me. But you can also email me at my CCSD account.
Great.
Just be warned that it may take a while for me to get it, and it may take a little longer for me to actually get my reply out. But that's an internal thing.
Fantastic. Well, great. If there aren't any more questions, thank you so much, Chris, for this very informative session. I found it very valuable. I'm sure everyone else on the call did as well. And thank you, everyone, for joining. We will be having another webinar next Wednesday. That webinar will be covering the Symbaloo portal and solution. Some of you may be familiar with Symbaloo, but it's a consolidator and visualization tool for accessing commonly used web links and web mixes. So that will be at the same time, and information about it should be coming out shortly. With that, thank you everyone for attending, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.